We've all seen the ads. I want to buy your house. They're everywhere. Today, I want to talk with you about the pros and cons of selling your home to a We Buy Houses investor. I'm real estate broker and CPA Sharon McLennon, and I want to show you all the things that you should be aware of before you sign with a We Buy Houses investor. So let's go ahead and dive on in. We see the ads everywhere. They're on TV, they're on the radio, we get texts, they come in the form of mailers, we see them on social media, they're everywhere. Variations, sometimes it's a single person, sometimes it's a husband and wife. Whatever it is, all of them are presenting themselves as options for you if you need to sell your home. The pitch sounds perfect, and they're all very similar. It's a fast cash offer, typically within 24 hours. No repairs needed, no commissions, and you get to close quickly. That can sound very attractive depending on the circumstance that you're in. It is important, however, to note that simplicity does not necessarily translate into higher net proceeds for you. And if you're someone who has listened to any of my videos, you know that we've talked on multiple occasions about the difference between the sales price and your net proceeds. We focus on net proceeds here because that's what you walk away with. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what it is that this actually means for you if you take advantage of these offers. So who are these buyers? Before we talk about the impact of you selling to them, let's look at who they are. Typically, they're real estate investors. Some of them are wholesalers. In other words, they're going to buy your property and sell it to another investor. In some cases, they're flippers. They're going to buy, do renovations, and put the property back on the market at a higher price so that they can make a profit, or they can be investment companies. So it's four typical types. They're all real estate investors. Some of them are private, one or two people. Some of them are larger investment companies that maybe have a footprint throughout the country or throughout the region. It all depends. The one thing that they have in common is that they are looking to make a profit from your home. Their business model is that they buy at a discount and they resell at a profit, or they hold it for a period of time, collect rental income before ultimately selling. There's some variation of it, but understand buying your house is a part of their business model. The bottom line for them is this is not a home. There is no emotional attachment. This is a transaction, and their profit comes when they negotiate the price with you. So the less that they can get you to take is the better an option your property becomes for them. When you're working with an owner-occupant buyer, there are typically emotions involved. The owner-occupant is looking for a lifestyle. They are looking to have a connection with the space. They want to know that they can be there, they can be comfortable, they may be stretching to get into that home. They're often willing to pay the market value. They're looking for a fair deal on their end to get something that they recognize will bring not only a future financial benefit to them and possibly their family, but they're looking for somewhere to put roots down and to be able to just live their life and enjoy. So there's a lot of emotional attachment that is involved when you're working with an owner-occupant buyer. On the other hand, when you're working with an investor, this is a spreadsheet. It's a straight-out calculation. They're able to come up with a price at which point the property makes sense for them. They have a range that they can operate in. Once they get outside of that range, it no longer is a viable product for them. And so at the end of the day, they're driven by their profit margin, not by the emotion. So it's really important to understand who you're dealing with and what you can expect the process to look based on whether you're working with an owner-occupant buyer or you're working with an investor. How do investors calculate their offer? They actually work backwards. So they take your home, they look at your property, and they do an estimate of what they think the fixed up value is going to be. So say your home, maybe you need a new roof, or maybe you have an outdated home. They're going to have to come in and redo the kitchen, put in a new bathroom or a couple new bathrooms, make some renovations to the home. They estimate the fixed up value for the home, and that is what they think the home will be worth after they've done their repairs and they put it back on the market, what they think they can get. That is considered the after repair value or the fixed up value. So in our example here, let's say they determine that fixed up value is going to be $400,000. They also do an estimate on what it's going to cost for them to get that home to that condition. And in this case, we're using $40,000 as just a round number to say, okay, that's what it's going to cost. They're going to have to put on a roof for $15,000. They're going to have to put in a kitchen for $15,000. And then there's $5,000 of painting and flooring and $5,000 of cosmetics to come up with $40,000. Then they're going to estimate how long they're going to have to keep the property. So once they close with you, they're going to need time to do the repairs. They're going to figure out how long that is going to be. That's considered the holding period, and they're going to factor in what that costs them. So if they borrowed the money to purchase, which they do in many cases, if they borrowed the money to be able to finance the purchase, then what they're going to do is they're going to be incurring interest. They're also going to be incurring their portion of the property taxes. So there are some costs associated to them holding the property, and they're going to calculate that too. And then they're going to figure out how much they want to make up the deal. So in this case, they're saying, okay, we want to make $60,000 off of this deal. We have a $400,000 after repair value. We know we have to do about $40,000 in repairs. We're estimating it's going to take us a few months. So it's going to cost about $20,000 in holding costs that we're going to be responsible for while we're doing the repairs and until the property is sold. And we want to make $60,000. Based on that, their offer is going to land somewhere around $280,000 as their cash price to you. So 400,000 less 40, less 20, less 60 leaves us with 280, and that is what they know that is their ceiling. That is their cap. Now they may come in at 260, so there's some room for negotiation, but at the end of the day, 280 is their ceiling. If you need to go above 280, it's not a viable deal for them, and they move on to another property. There are some scenarios, despite the fact that there will be a significant discount to the pricing, there are some scenarios where selling to an investor makes sense. If you need to close in a really short period of time, for whatever reason, 7 days, 21 days, although depending on the condition that your property is, there may be some other alternatives. But say, for example, you're really locked in and you need to get out within the next 7 to 21 days, that may be an option for you. If you're in a situation where you can't accommodate showings, your lifestyle is one where you just can't accommodate the disruptions of showings and all of the steps that go with selling a home, then maybe that might be an option. If you are not able to do any type of repairs and your home needs repair, because if your home is in fairly good condition and you're selling it as is, that does not mean that you need to entertain an investor offer. But if you know that you have significant deferred maintenance, in other words, there's significant things that are going to be needed to be done for the house to get sold, and you're not going to be able to finance that, or you're not going to be able to come up with the funding, you don't want to be involved with any repairs, you don't want to do any prep work, you just want to give somebody the keys and walk away, and they give you a check, then that is maybe an option. And then if you have an urgent situation, maybe it's a foreclosure, maybe there's some major damage, maybe, you have some type of extenuating circumstance that's making the need to get out really quickly the most important factor, then selling to an investor may make perfect sense for you. All right. The idea is not to rule this out as an option. It's just for you to understand what the option actually entails, so that if this is in your best interest, then this makes perfect sense for you. The real cost of a fast sale, and you just have to watch out for these downsides, you are going to be looking at discounts of between 15 and 25% typically. Those are common. They do typically have a take it or leave it approach. Again, we talked about it earlier. There's no emotional attachment. This is a business decision. The numbers either work or they don't. And if they don't, then they're happy to walk away to look for the next deal. If you're working with a wholesaler, they may flip your contract. And what that looks like is that you sign an agreement with them and they turn around and sell that agreement, assign it to someone else. So the person who ultimately closes on your property will pay a different price. Some of the proceeds will go to you. Some will go to the person, the wholesaler who flipped your property, and you walk away. That's the end of it. You may actually end up with price reductions. I know a lot of times no inspections, no repairs, and the pitch sounds good, but a lot of times they will come back and say that something came to light that they did not anticipate, and so they may ask for you to reduce the pricing again. There is no appraisal that you're going to be doing. There is no valuation. So you're very much in the passenger seat in this transaction. You don't get to dictate terms. You don't typically get to dictate value. A lot of it is just basically handing over the responsibility and putting the investor in the driver's seat so that you basically end up at a destination without really having a whole lot of input into what the aspects of the deal are until you get to the closing table. Now, a lot of times I know that there's a lot of concern around real estate commission and cost, and people feel that going with the investor offer may actually work out to be better for them because they think it's just so expensive to sell through traditional means. What does a traditional sale actually look like? What you may find, a lot of people what does a typical traditional sale actually end up costing? And I know a lot of sellers are concerned. They think that the cost of a traditional sale is prohibitive and that going with the investor we buy houses option might be a good alternative. It's important to note that on a traditional sale, typically as a seller, you are going to be out of pocket between 7 to 9% of that sales price. Okay, a portion of that is going to be agent commission. There may be some concessions that you might make to the buyer to help them finance their closing costs. There's a title insurance component, there are doc stamps, there's settlement costs and prorations. But overall, a general rule between 7 and 9% is typically where sellers come out in a traditional sale as having had to pay that expense to get their home sold. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're evaluating your options. So how do the two things stack up? Side by side, what do you actually walk away with? Again, net proceeds. What are you walking away with? Assuming that the home has a $400,000 market value, let's explore what you would walk away with a traditional sale versus the investor sale. Your sales price would be $400,000 in a traditional sale. Less discounts of approximately 8%, even let's say discounts of 10%, so that we can be as conservative as possible. With discounts of 10%, you would be looking at $40,000 as your cost. You would walk away with a net of $360,000. If you're on the investor side, your home at $400,000, they're going to offer you a minimum of a 25% discount. In some cases, I've seen 30, 40, 50% as their initial offer, but you're going to be walking away with, at a minimum, a 25% discount. So they're going in at $300,000. In theory, there are no fees. So let's assume that we stayed in that space. You are still going to incur potentially of some minor costs So you may walk away with between $295,000 and $300,000. That is a $70,000 difference. In the case of us using 10%, that is a $62,000 difference in what you walk away with for selling the same home, just based on whether you went the traditional route or you went with a seller. Now, there are cases when that $70,000 makes sense for you to forego because you just need that speed in the transaction, or there are other circumstances that require you to make that compromise. But just keep in mind that when you see these ads that they're out there talking to you about, bear in mind that in those cases, they are not usually the best financial net outcome for you. Just keep that in mind. At the end of the day, you are not walking away with the maximum amount that you could because, again, the investor has to build in a profit component, and every dollar of profit that they get is a dollar that you don't get. So before you sign anything, here are some important things to keep in mind. Know your timeline. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, if urgency is the single most important driver, it has to get done in 10 days, 2 weeks, and there are no other options, for sure, this may make sense. Assess your property. Come up with an idea of what you think and get professional help. Come up with an idea of what the value is on the property and what is the real condition of it. Make sure that you are clear on what repairs are needed, if any, and have an approximate idea on what that would cost. Define your goals. Is speed your ultimate outcome? Getting it done, is that the most important thing? Or are you looking to maximize the net proceeds that you walk away from? Depending upon which option is most important for you, you'll pick the strategy that's going to align with that. And then calculate your numbers. Make sure that you go through, calculate, you understand what you can reasonably expect to walk away from, so at the end of the day, there are no surprises. If you need help assessing what your options are, please feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to help. The best way to get me is visiting my website, simplyaskSharon.com, where you can schedule a consultation with me to discuss your particular situation. It's a 15-minute phone call, absolutely free with no obligation. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this information helpful. Please remember to like the video as well as to subscribe to our channel so you can be notified when new videos are released. Always remember that when you own property, you own possibility. Until next time, see you then.